Good morning, everybody, and welcome to Law and Crime. I'm Jesse Weber, and thanks for joining us here on the network where we cover the most interesting live trials and legal stories. Let's get started. Guilty. Guilty, guilty, guilty. Let's break it all down right now. Joining me are two very special guests. First up, psychiatrist Dr. Carol Lieberman is with me, as well as judge and trial attorney Judge Quentin Washington. Good morning to you both. Dr. Carol Lieberman, I'll start with you. You had an opportunity to review this video, you said countless times. What's your perspective on this?
Well, yes, I watched a lot of this trial, and I disagree with the verdict.
I can't hear him.
I think that he shouldn't have been found guilty. I think the problem is that the attorney didn't have a psychiatric expert witness, didn't present the whole story. And clearly, Mr. McLaughlin was the one who pushed him. He was fearful for his life. I think it was social pressures that made them come up with that verdict.
Okay, I'm going to ask you more questions about that, but I want to get the judge's perspective on this. Judge, I don't know if you had an opportunity to hear Dr. Carol Lieberman on that, but she basically said she was surprised by the verdict, disagreed with the verdict, and felt that the social pressures had to do with what happened here. What's your take?
I don't know. When you get a unanimous verdict from a jury, that's what happens. Because we as the American justice system have set up a set of rules and procedures, and if a jury comes in of your peers and they say that this is what happened, then fortunately or unfortunately, depending upon your side that you're on, that's what we have to call as the end of the matter.
Okay, so we have two interesting perspectives this morning on this trial. It was very highly controversial. A lot of people were watching it. Let's break it down. Let's go back, see how the jury came to their verdict. We're going to start right now with Brittany Jacobs. Remember, she's a key eyewitness in this. This is actually McLaughlin's girlfriend who was right there, a central figure in this altercation. She had an opportunity to take the stand. Let's play her testimony. So you have to imagine, very strong witness for the prosecution. Doctor, you said the defense would have benefited from a strong witness, a psychological evaluation here. What were you referring to earlier when you said that you were surprised by this verdict?
Well, there were a lot of things, but for one thing, they never really explained, at least in the trial footage that I watched, about why it was that Drejka started this whole thing to begin with, why it was that he was so upset about someone being parked in a handicap spot. And that was because both his mother-in-law and his high school girlfriend were handicapped. And the high school girlfriend is now deceased. And so it had a lot of personal meaning to him. So it was really something that had gotten him that he was very passionate about and upset about. And so I think that would have helped in order to give a light into who he was. And then, of course, you know, the picture, I mean, yes, he did back up. McLaughlin did back up a little bit, but before that, he totally pushed him. He made him feel totally out of control, made Drejka feel out of control when he pushed him, sort of out of the blue, you know, out of the surprising him, pushed him to the ground. It made him feel totally out of control. He was on the ground, and there was this big man standing above him. So I don't think he had time to reflect, well, he's backing. He in fact described it. He didn't think that he was backing up, and that's how he saw it.
Well, the other person who saw this again is Brittany Jacobs. I want to play when she had an opportunity to be cross-examined. Let's see how that went. Okay, and doctor, as you said earlier, we should understand it would be important for this jury to have understood the motivations why the defendant was kind of this vigilante parking space guy, you know, going out and getting upset at people who were parking in handicapped spots because there were people close in his life who actually were handicapped. Ironically, he actually parks in the wrong spot to confront Brittany Jacobs and McLaughlin, which is just kind of interesting in itself. But why should a jury care about this? I mean, does it really matter what his motivation is? Because at the end of the day, the jury found that he was the initial aggressor in this conflict.
Well, I mean, it depends on when you want to start looking at that. He was the initial aggressor in terms of he was the one who started walking around the car. But when Mr. McLaughlin came out, he was the aggressor by pushing him down on the floor. I think it's important to understand his psychological state, to understand why he was more vulnerable to being frightened when Mr. McLaughlin came out and pushed him to the ground. That he was already in an upset kind of state of mind.
Well, let me ask you about that, because one argument was that this is a guy who's armed and he went out looking for trouble. That's what he wanted to do. He felt emboldened in a way. He's armed. If anybody messes with him, he'll take care of them. What would you say to that?
I didn't really hear any proof of that. I mean, I know, yes, there was something some months ago. They had a witness who had parked in a parking spot there in the handicap spot, and he did confront that man. He didn't shoot him.
He said, I ought to shoot you. And even when he was confronted about it, he said afterwards, he goes, I just can't control myself.
Okay, but he didn't shoot that man, because that man stayed in his truck, from what I understand, or at least in any case, did not push him, did not do anything aggressive towards him.
But still, it shows a pattern there, and that's what I want to explore with you as we continue on talking about this case. There's a lot to break down with this case, both the legal and also the psychological aspects. Let's take a break. When we come back, much more to analyze.